Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three amazing guests today to answer this question. How do leaders establish buy-in with seasoned employees to embrace new approaches? But first, a quick intro. We have with us today Mandy Wong, certified professional coach with more than 14 years of experience spanning product development, data strategy, and client success. She currently leads data products and services team at the Canada Post. Her focus is on building innovative, data-rich solutions that drive customer growth, operational efficiency, and measurable business impact. She is also an amazing coach. I happen to know that. Jill Cruz, executive coach, career development consultant, speaker. She helps empower attorneys and leaders to achieve their career goals and leadership potential. She's the owner of JLC Consulting and partners with individuals and organizations in the career and leadership development space. Jill, too, an amazing coach. I happen to know that. Jeremy DeGrath. Did I say that right, Jeremy? I hope so.
Yeah,
Master DeGrath. Thank you. Master's in HR development from Texas A&M. He's a business analyst and recruitment specialist with C12 Business Forums, serving Christian CEOs and owners to build great businesses for even greater purpose. I'm so excited to have the three of you on. I can't wait to hear the perspectives and experience that you're going to bring. And Mandy, you did draw the short end of the stick today, or I actually selected you for this. We're going to have you kick things off. So enlighten us. How do leaders establish buy-in with seasoned employees to embrace new approaches?
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle, for having me. And that is a great question. I think incredibly relevant today when we feel like change is a constant. As you shared, in my role, I lead a data and analytics team. And so for us, it can feel like new technologies are appearing on an everyday, weekly basis. And for us, new approaches can often be discussions around automation, self-serve tools, including AI. And so with leadership, I think it's more than just about managing change. It's about helping the people feel safe enough to embrace the new approach. And with seasoned employees, I don't think that they are resistant to change. I think they might be resistant to unwise change. And that's fair because they've been around long enough to see what works and what doesn't work. And so my first job really is to make sure that I'm honoring their experience and their wisdom and everything that they bring to the table. For me, I think new approaches, I like to frame it as an evolution. So not a replacement, but building on what's worked before and making the past part of the foundation of what's next. And when experienced team members see themselves as part of the change, as the next chapter, then they won't feel like they're being left behind. I think as leaders and as people, we know that we either change or we grow or we plateau. So any type of new approach really means that it's giving us an opportunity to grow together. And that's how I like to position it with my teams. But I do think it's incredibly important to acknowledge that change is scary and that it's an unknown. And we want to acknowledge that that is true for many of them that we're introducing this new approach to.
Yeah, I love that. But like, meet it where it is. It is scary. But I think going back to one of the things you said first was about respect and honor what the current or existing employees have built. I think that's so, so important. Awesome. Jill, let's jump over to you. What would you add to how leaders establish buy-in with seasoned employees in order to embrace new approaches?
Yeah, I'm going to just build on what we're already talking about. You know, the old saying, or maybe it's not that old, but nobody cares how much you know unless they know how much you care, really strikes a chord with me. I think it really reflects what Mandy was saying. I remember many, many years ago, I've been around, that I stepped in at the time I was in my mid 30s, and stepped in as the new chief human resources officer for a very large national law firm. And I remember I was brought in to modernize the division and also to professionalize the human resources function. And I was inheriting a team of about 250 employees, many of whom had been in their roles for over a decade. So here I was, this young upstart coming in. I knew I wasn't going to, I was not going, it was not going to work if I came in and just told them, this is what we're going to do because I'm the boss, or assume that I knew more than they did. I knew that I had to have a different approach. I also realized I needed to earn the trust, right, and respect of the team in order for this to be effective. And I learned that buy-in from seasoned employees isn't about pushing the change. It's really about starting with connection. And so what I did is I met with each of the 12 division heads or the department heads. And rather than tell them what I thought we should do or how this worked at my previous firms, I listened. I wanted to know what mattered to them, what were they proud of, what was it that where did they want to see improvements, where did they want to grow individually and also as a team. And the conversations weren't about convincing, they were about really trying to understand, to really listen to their perspective. And really what we were doing was we were developing psychological ownership and also a shared mission and shared purpose. And not every department, as understandably, not every department was as ready to make those changes. I remember one department in particular was very hesitant about any new technology that we brought to the table. This is prior to AI, where technology is just the standard. And there was one particular process that I had seen and developed in my other firms, which was an applicant tracking system that I was introducing to the new department, the attorney recruiting department. And they were very hesitant because, well, I didn't know why they were hesitant, but they were very resistant to this process. And so rather than going through and pushing through of what we should do and why we should do it, I slowed it down. And what I learned was the why behind why their resistance, because their reputation had always been about having that connection with the applicant. And so they felt that in order to do that, they needed to be immersing themselves in the applications and in the resumes. So what I did was I partnered with them and said, okay, we're going to check out all these. Here's some options. If you want to bring in a potential vendor, let's do this together. And bottom line was through that process, they realized that they were able to not only make their jobs easier, but also their decisions more impactful. And so what started with skepticism really turned into enthusiasm. So what made the difference wasn't the technology, it wasn't the process, it was the approach. It was really about co-creating, being a co-architect in this process where they had skin in the game and they realized that I wasn't there to take something away from them. I was there to help them. And just like we are coaches, it was about understanding what was actually happening underneath the surface and to really address that. So that was
connecting that change to the purpose, right? Yeah. Love it. Jeremy, what would you add to these two ladies?
Man, one of the things I love about going last year is I don't feel like there's too much to add. Jill and Mandy have done a great job. So they built the foundation, they built the building for this. I'll just open up another door to another room, right? Another way of thinking about it. One of the things that I have seen done well with leaders who are talking with seasoned employees and embracing change, it's really two things. One is helping them understand the desired outcome and decreasing the time and effort to get there. And the way that the new change will decrease that time and effort to get where we want to go, similar to connecting to that purpose piece that Jill talked about. And then similar to what Mandy mentioned as well of and allowing and giving space for the seasoned employees to present their ideas, present their thoughts, their questions, kind of their feelings around it. That plays very that plays a huge role from my experience, especially when you have the seasoned employees talking with the new employees and getting them on board as well. And so I think giving space for them with also a knowledge of understanding that when change happens, not everyone's going to be on board with it, nor wants to do the work that's involved. And so also giving space not only for their thoughts and actions, but also for people to raise their hand and say, hey, I think this is okay. I think this is great. Even I'm not willing to do that kind of work. I'm ready to leave.
Mm.
And giving them an opportunity to get on board and having an opportunity for them to leave well and gracefully if that's what they choose. And to also just row hard and on the same team if that's what they choose as well.
Yeah, I love that. And that's interesting because we've kind of talked about, I mean, um, if you're in a role and there's change and we've got to help generate that buy-in with the team that's already on board to move it forward. Jill talked about coming in as a new person and have that extra dynamic of having to build buy-in from people that have already been there. And now you're that, you're that coming in and going to shake some things up. So I think one of the things that I hear loudest is really creating that space and being a listener and respecting and honoring what has currently exists and identifying and maybe even relating that as the foundation to why change is even possible. If it hadn't been strong, it's not that it's broken. It's, hey, we're in this. We're committed to moving this thing forward. How do we all get on board to making it even better? So think about in the midst of change, maybe with existing employees, when skepticism comes up, how do you distinguish maybe valid risk signals or people that are kind of shining a light on something that's really kind of worth looking at versus what we might want to label as just simple discomfort with change? How do you distinguish and navigate that as the leader of the change?
I'll just jump in, and there's not fully formed. I think as a coach, I think it's really starting from that place of curiosity and openness without your judgment coming into its skepticism. It's something negative where you have to defend your ideas or push through. So maybe it's kind of creating that space for just asking the questions to try to understand. And I know as a coach that oftentimes we start to see where the fear is or where the self-doubt or where the gremlins, if you will, where are they showing up? So I think for me, it's really about entering into that conversation without a preconceived notion of what that outcome is, where you're just kind of checking in with them and asking questions so that you can help them and help yourself see what might be behind it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, one other thing I'd add to that too is the more specific the questions or the skepticism, the more likely I think it is that it's actual rather than just a feeling. Now, that doesn't mean that someone can't say, hey, I don't feel good about this. And that's where I think you come into what Jill was talking about of, hey, let me take off my glasses. I'm not trying to defend this, but can you tell me more about that? Or what do you mean by that? And asking questions to dig into that. But in my experience, I've found that if people are talking at a general level about feelings of things, then that's where you work through the resistance to change. But if they can start pinpointing specific pieces that they're skeptical about, that's where you start getting into, okay, it's the gears for, is this change actually going to work?
Yeah. I had somebody tell me one time, risk needs a plan, discomfort needs a conversation.
Right.
And I thought that was really a great way to kind of put a new lens on, like, yeah, that's right, because you want your people to identify risk or holes that could potentially be there. And if they're doing it with the right intentions, then that makes it even better, right? Makes the change even stronger. Mandy, what would you add?
Honestly, I think both Jeremy and Jill nailed it. I like the part about leading with curiosity, not having a preconceived notion, being open to not having it go the way that you originally wanted to see the change. trusting that you have experts that are, we're working towards the same goal. I think one of the things that I do think is so important, just when we're talking about new approaches, I didn't get a chance to share, was just more about like the psychological safety of the whole part of change. Because ultimately, I think we're asking our teams, try something new, try something different. I can't guarantee you any success right now. I just think this is the way to go. And if they feel safe with the new approach, or know that you have their back, or that you're going to support them through the highs and the lows of a transition, they are going to be more willing to stretch themselves out of the comfort zone. And that is what change is all about, is being uncomfortable. And so I think, really laying the foundation of that safety piece is going to be key, and also making them get the buy-in of, we can do this, and we can thrive into this new chapter that we're creating together.
Yeah, so good. I'm thinking skepticism kind of is the lens that says, prove to me that this won't fail, and then the discomfort is prove to me that I won't fail. Right. Yeah. Yeah, so good. All right, you guys, well, we're gonna call it time for today. Thank y'all so much for watching. Remember, check out LinkedIn every Thursday at noon. Inspired Action episodes, new episodes drop, and anytime here on our YouTube channel at MindFit Coaching for the longer versions. Thank you so much to Jill, Jeremy, and Mandy for joining us. An incredible insight, and we will see y'all next time.
Well, that's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.